Good morning, everybody. Well, I have to say, what a start Boris Johnson has made. Speeches of Downing Street, speeches in the House of Commons, visits to Manchester, barely a jammer or a stammer or a ruffle of the hair, a very different-looking, disciplined Boris. Very positive, very, very positive. We are leaving on the 31st of October, do or die, and there's going to be money for the North. And he's made some appointments, and I have to say, compared to the sheer negativity of the last 3 years, which at times I think has been dire, in terms of style, there's no question he has made a very good start. Now, today's newspapers are absolutely full of No Deal Brexit talk. Michael Gove telling us it's a real possibility. Sajid Javid, the Chancellor, about to spend a lot of money getting ready for a No Deal Brexit, including the prospect, and this is a wonderful counter to David Cameron, the prospect of a leaflet going through every house in the country telling us why we should not be worried about leaving with no deal on the 31st of October. We could call it Project No Fear, I suppose, and quite amusing to think that one Etonian Prime Minister would do this to counter what was done by a previous Etonian Prime Minister. But no, it is in style very, very good. The substance of this, well, it'll play out. Does Boris really believe in a no-deal Brexit? I don't think so. I think it's all actually a big negotiating position with the European Union. It's just the kind of thing Trump would do. The art of the deal. You pitch in hard, you pitch in high, you're then prepared to start compromising. And are Brussels going to compromise? Well, we will, during the course of this hour, talk to the Times Brussels correspondent Bruno Waterfield, a man that knows the European Commission well. But I thought I'd begin today looking at the Boris bounce, because in the opinion polls the Tories are up between 6 and 10%. It all rather depends which polling company you look at, and it all rather depends what date and timeline you're comparing the previous poll with. But either way, the Conservatives now appear to be up around 30%. That's a lot more. I mean, they've been languishing in the low 20s for a considerable period of time. And of course, don't forget that on the 23rd of May in the European elections, they finished up with less than 10% of the vote in that election. So this is better. This is a positive start. And I'm going to be asking you over the course of the next hour, are you attracted to what Boris has said and done in the last few days? Are you one of these people who's returned to the Conservative fold? Or maybe you're one actually that's left and gone to the Lib Dems because you think they're too Brexity. But before we do any of that, earlier on this morning, I thought, well, who better to talk to about the Boris bounce than the father of the Prime Minister, Stanley Johnson? And I began by asking him whether I should refer to him as the first father.
Well, you could. But I'd like to think, Nigel, I've actually done a few other things in my life, 26 books, a few jobs.
No, you certainly have. And of course, you've been an MEP, so you've been in politics yourself. How does it feel to have a son who is the Prime Minister?
Well, of course, it is absolutely superb. I mean, I feel tremendously proud. I don't think it happens to a great number of people to watch their sons become Prime Minister. I mean, I must admit, there are obviously a few of them around. I think David Cameron was one, maybe Tony Blair was certainly one. But they're not. They don't have more. Gladstone became Prime Minister last time at the age of 80. I don't think his father was the right. So yes, I'm absolutely. Of course, it's a slightly bittersweet moment for me, Nigel, because I did start off very much as a Remainer. In the referendum I campaigned for Remain, but once we voted in June 2016, to leave with 17.4 million votes on that site, I said to myself, well, that's what it is. Vox populi, vox dei. The people have spoken. We've got to get on with it. So bittersweet in a funny way, but of course with sweetness very much the dominant motive.
And Boris has made, by all accounts, a pretty good start. But do you think, given that there's almost no parliamentary majority, given some of the difficulties that still exist within the Conservative Party, can he deliver this? He's got less than 100 days.
Well, I'm pretty confident he will. In fact, I'm more than confident. I'd take money on it. I put bets on it, because one thing is absolutely clear to me, and when he says no ifs and buts, I think he means this. And everything I can see, and I have no special information, no privileged access, I can tell you, but everything I see leads me to suppose that he is as solid as a rock on this commitment that Britain will come out on October the 31st, on or before October the 31st this year. And I think what has changed in the whole perspective, and you probably see this much closer than I do, what has changed, I think, is this message will get across to our European colleagues. And I think, personally, I think we will see a big change in their view as they realize the irony of the situation. Here they are, for example, pushing the Irish backstop with a view to, as it were, protecting Ireland from a hard border. And in fact, the one thing which is really going to throw Ireland under the bus, is having a No Deal Brexit, which seems to be being forced upon us. So honestly, I think that there has to be a change. That doesn't mean there isn't work to do, Nigel, by our diplomats. And I think that lots of contacts are going on, obviously with the embassies in this country. But we need to be sure that our diplomats are really trying in the nation states, because you know better than I do.
Oh, I agree.
As well as I do, it's the nation states which in the end will determine the policy in Brussels.
And this has been the failure for the last 3 years, Stanley. I said the week after the referendum, we should be going out all across Europe, putting pressure on those governments to say to Brussels, look, come to a grown-up deal. And I hope that work is going on. But if it really came to it, and if Brussels were not prepared to give enough for the House of Commons to pass a withdrawal agreement, I mean, how damaging do you feel that a no-deal Brexit would be?
Well, I just pick up that point. We will have a no-deal Brexit. If a vote, other things being equal, that is the default position. And I'm honestly not one of those people who say, wow, this is going to be a total disaster. Well, it might be a disaster from the EU's point of view. They export to us much more than we export to them. It might be a disaster, will be a disaster possibly from Ireland's point of view. But I go back to the May 1940 situation. Who was it who said London can take it or Britain can take it?
Stanley, you sound like a leaver these days.
I am a leaver. I told you I am a leaver. Because that's why I said to you, Nigel. Vox populi, vox Dei, I am a leaver. And you know something? I've been rereading recently, would you believe it, a biography of Gateskill. I was reading his speech in October 1962 to the Brighton Labour Party conference. And do you know something? He was an incredibly clever and brilliant man. And he said, look, there is really a strong case for thinking twice before going into Europe. And I think in a way we've got the obverse of that situation now. There is real merit on the Leave side, and in any case, regardless of the fact of that merit, as I said before, the people have spoken. It is up to us to deliver it. We can't have a situation where it's Parliament versus the people.
Has Boris persuaded you of all of this, Stanley?
This is my situation. I am absolutely ready to believe that this is the right route at this moment. I really am. I cannot imagine how this country could survive more and years after year of continued. I mean, you have another referendum, and then what happens? You have an unchanged arithmetic in the Parliament. You have the same thing all over again. I can't see this. Now, what Boris has offered, and you know this, he's offered a very clear deal to our European partners. A standstill as far as trade and tariffs concerned, remit the whole question of the Irish backstop and frictionless trade to the second go-round. Okay, we keep up some payments, that's absolutely fine, and we do a deal on citizenship and so on. It's a pretty straightforward deal, and actually it seems to me just a matter of stubbornness on the part of Mr. Juncker and Mr. Barnier at the moment. It's almost as though pride is involved. It's like a First World War situation. Both sides are armed and armed and armed, and in the end, we're going to have a war by accident.
Well, I wonder, an amended withdrawal agreement, would that get through the House of Commons? That would be the big question, won't it?
I do know something. I think anything which would get through the House of Commons would need to be a pretty radical departure from the withdrawal agreement. It would, I think it would be a pretty unrecognizable withdrawal agreement. It would, as I say, merely be an exit departure, but an agreed exit, but with, some clear commitments for the future.
Well, Stanley Johnson, I never ever thought I'd hear him say there's real merit on the Leave side. He appears to be this Damascene convert. But as he says, it's because We voted for it, and it needs to be delivered, and he thinks Boris is going to deliver it. So, has Prime Minister Johnson attracted you back to the Tories? I want to see your messages coming in. I get this one, anonymously. It's been non-stop personal attacks on Prime Minister Johnson. I'm sick of you, Farage. You're constantly attacking him. No, I'm not. I've just said I think he's made a very good start. I think in terms of style and optimism, it's miles better than what we had before. And I have to say, being in the north of England yesterday and talking about the need to regenerate the north. I mean, goodness me, I spent nearly the whole of the European election campaign in the north of England saying these things. He's taken many things out of our playbook from the Brexit Party. I can't be unhappy about that. I mean, nothing could be more flattering. Look, let me make this clear. I wish him well. I want him to deliver Brexit on the 31st of October. But, and this is the but, if he is going to go to Brussels, get some changes to the withdrawal agreement, and then put that before the House of Commons and say the backstop's being removed, or there's a time limit to the backstop, so this withdrawal agreement is now fine. It isn't. It isn't in any way. The withdrawal agreement, even without the backstop, is still the worst deal in history. I don't want the withdrawal agreement reheated. I want us to leave with a clean break Brexit. And if Boris delivers that, he will be a hero for all time. The question is, does he really believe in leaving with no deal, or is it a negotiating tactic?